Hi there, it's Red again, back with Princess Star Pony and Prime 34. And today we're going to talk to you about monsters. Hi, how are you doing, Princess Star Pony?
I'm doing great today.
Are you feeling scared?
A little bit.
What about you, Prime 34? How are you?
Okay.
Are you feeling scared to talk about monsters?
No. Just brain dead.
You're feeling brain dead?
Blind dead.
Are you being Frankenstein?
No.
Why don't you start us off by telling us, either Princess Star Pony or Prime 34, what you know about the misconception about Frankenstein?
Frankenstein. Okay. Frankenstein was not actually what it was called. It was called Frankenstein's Monster by Mary Shelley. And Frankenstein is the misunderstood person. Eventually he starts getting hostile, but first it was Dr. Frankenstein who was the one who was the misconception who made Frankenstein, and then when he saw him he got disgusted by it, so he decided to just throw it out into the garbage, and so that's when Frankenstein became the monster.
Yeah, anybody who gets abandoned and thrown away and told how awful and scary they are might develop a grudge.
Yeah.
How would you feel if when you were born, your mama just threw you away?
I would feel so sad and angry and
Well,
raw.
they were,
Yeah. And so in Mary Shelley's novel, the Frankenstein's monster is referred to, do you remember?
The creature?
As the creature. That's right. And one interesting thing we learned about Frankenstein is that the monster is sometimes so horrible to understand, but it can be the society that's actually monstrous, right? And
Yeah.
a reflection of that. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, in the Hunchback of
Notre Dame?
Notre Dame.
Uh-huh.
That was Notre Dame.
It's Notre Dame.
Sounds like Notre Dame.
It's Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Uh-huh. Tell us about the Hunchback.
Okay, the Hunchback. His name is
Quasimodo.
Quasimodo.
Quasimodo is actually a really nice person, but everyone in the town thinks he's a monster. But they're not realizing that they're actually monsters for saying he's a monster and locking him away.
Yeah, exactly. So if we label something as monstrous because we don't understand it, and then we treat that other, right? We label them as an other and then treat them differently as a result, it really shows that
We're monsters.
that's right. Yeah. And Mary Shelley's Frankenstein came up over and over and over again as we researched monsters. So it seems like, at least in the 21st century, that's one major historical monster that we think of. But monsters, well, Mary Shelley wrote that in the 19th century, in the 1800s. So Frankenstein has been around for quite a while. But there are monsters that have been around much longer than that, since the ancient times. Why don't we tell listeners some things that we learned about monsters from ancient cultures? Such as maybe the Aztec culture, and the Western and the Greek myths.
Oh, I have one on a Greek monster. It's Hades and his three-headed dog.
Uh-huh. That's right. And the monsters that in Aztec culture are also gods. And that's one thing that I found so interesting about Mesoamerican and indigenous cultures. So like Coatlique and Tlazolteotl, they are both goddesses and mothers of creation and birth. But they also are, for instance, Tlazolteotl is an eater of filth. And it's interesting. And then Coatlique also has snakes for skirts. That's what her name means, is snakes for skirts. And her skirts are made out of snakes.
Okay.
So the goddesses are also the monsters. And I thought that was really interesting, that there's no differentiation there. Whereas in Western and Greek myths, the monsters are different from the gods, oftentimes like Cyclops and the Sphinx. But then we were talking about, remember, do the gods act any better? Because sometimes the gods do terrible things too. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really interesting. Just that distinction is not always so clear between a hero and a monster, right? And we like to think that there's such a thing as a hero and there's such a thing as a monster. But sometimes the villains or the monsters had thought that they were heroes. Right? That they're the heroes of their own story, but then they took a wrong turn.
Thanos thought he was a hero.
Yeah, Thanos in the Avengers?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, he thought that he was helping Earth by...
No, the universe.
The universe. By killing half the population.
That's right. So he was deranged and delusional, but in his own mind, right, he was doing something great and wonderful. Right, so monsters, this is, I think, so important. Monsters don't always know they're monsters, right? And we talked about Maleficent, too, right? That we get the monster's point of view and that there was a recreation of Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. And she's able to give her reasons and her point of view, right? So we had talked about if we don't give each other love, compassion, and understanding, then we could be the monster. Awesome. What else did you want to talk about with monsters?
Do you have anything, Princess Pony?
You didn't tell me about Maleficent. Both of you are a little reticent today. What does that mean, reticent?
Reticent means...
Not talking as much. Not as eager to talk about these things. Are you tired?
Yeah, kinda.
You had so many more things to talk about the other day. So we talked about Maleficent becomes evil because they didn't invite her to the party.
And also they took her wings off.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So they give her a backstory where they humanize her and give her a context and show her anger and why she wants to seek revenge. So similar to Frankenstein, right? To the creature, right? To Frankenstein's monster. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wait, was it Disney made though? Just question.
Disney made the remake, yes.
But then that kind of doesn't make sense with the original Maleficent, because the original Maleficent she turns into a dragon. How does she can she turn into a dragon without wings?
Yeah. It's her scepter that makes her turn into a dragon.
Okay. So we talked also about
Okay. Also, something from another movie is Brave, made by Disney as well. Thinking back is that when I remember watching it, it was like, the witch in Brave, gave the, princess, a potion to change her mom's mind about, marrying a prince, and then, when she gave her that potion in a muffin, instead of just changing her mind, she changed her whole appearance and she turned into a bear. So, would you think the witch be a monster, or would you think Brave's the monster for asking her mom to change? Or would you think her mom's the monster to not think about her daughter, what her daughter wants?
That makes me think about this book that Princess Star Pony that you really love and you brought to me last week when we first started thinking about monsters. What book is this?
The monster at the end of this book, starring lovable 4-year-old Grover.
Yeah, from Sesame Street. And I bet you've read this book before. The whole premise is that it starts out, there's a monster at the end of this book, and Grover says, "What did that say? On the first page, what did that say? Did that say there would be a monster at the end of this book? It did? Oh, I am so scared of monsters." And then what happens?
And then he tries to make it so you don't get to the end.
And what does he keep saying?
He keeps saying,
Stop reading.
"Please don't turn this page." Oh. And then what do we do?
And then we turn the page.
Why do we turn the page when he told us not to?
We were curious.
Why?
We're curious. And what do you do with a book, right? You turn
turn
the
the
pages.
page.
And when we turn the page, he says, "You turn the page!" Right? And the whole thing, he's so scared of monsters. And we keep going through the book. And at the very end, he says, "Please, please, please, please." Well, look at that. This is the end of the book. And the only one here is me. I, lovable, furry old Grover, am the monster at the end of this book. And you were so scared. Were we the ones who were scared?
No, he was scared.
What did he come to find?
But he was the monster.
That's right. And the monster was...
Him.
Yeah, and lovable, right? Lovable, furry old Grover. So sometimes what we're scared of, right, might not really be as bad as we think it is. So sometimes we find out that we are the monster and that's a terrible thing. But sometimes we find out the monster really isn't so bad, right? And we were scared of something that maybe didn't either really exist or just wasn't so bad. Did you have anything else to say about Grover? I know you had thought about Grover quite a bit. Okay. While Princess Pony
Is looking.
is thinking here,
No, I don't have anything.
okay, we had learned
You
that
just said everything I had.
cartographers what are cartographers?
Cartographers are...
People?
Map makers,
Map
right? And they would fill the voids in maps of places that they hadn't discovered yet, places that no one had ever, well, they hadn't gone to because there were indigenous peoples living there. So it's we need to decolonialize the idea that they were discovering something, right? Because peoples were already there. But they would fill the voids in maps that they didn't know by saying something like
Dragon.
Yeah, exactly. Here be dragons to represent the unknown. And then they would bring back some of the creatures from their explorations. And so, for instance, they brought back an armadillo, and people thought it was a monster. They thought it was a pig turtle.
Pig turtle.
Yeah, and then they brought back a walrus, and people thought it was a fish ox. And they brought back a platypus, and people thought it was as fake as the Fiji mermaid.
Oh, yeah. Like,
We didn't talk about the Fiji mermaid.
Oh, let's
yet.
talk about the
Here.
Fiji mermaid. Princess Pony, would you talk about the Fiji mermaid a little bit with what you remember?
So, from what I remember of the Fiji mermaid is
Did a monster take your brain?
yeah.
That's okay. Prime 34.
the Fiji mermaid was when everybody was so excited to see it. I can't remember this guy's name, but his partner P.T. Farm was they were advertising this thing called the Fiji mermaid, and the Fiji. So when everybody was so excited to go see it, so as soon as they went into this room, they saw a human body and a fishtail. But as soon as everybody saw it, everybody knew it was fake. It was a monkey sewed to a fish.
That's right. Yeah. And Barnum did display her in the oddities. What was it? Curiosities and oddities. The curio of curiosities. But it was just a fake, right? Mm-hmm. It was Dr. Griffin is who went in with Barnum, was a collaborator with Barnum, and that was displayed at, it was called Barnum's American Museum. And she remained a popular attraction in museums and on tour until she was destroyed in a fire in the 1880s.
Hey.
Right? But people wanted to believe, but it's just funny because when we think about the Fiji mermaid, we can think of, she was actually an amalgamation or a combination, a fusing of things that already existed in the world.
Like a chimera.
Tell us about a chimera.
Well, I think I'll leave that to someone who's actually a chimera. Miss Merkitty.
Merkitty, you have a mercat here with us today. Tell us about the mercat or the merkitty.
Well, I'm a merkitty, and I have a cat head and a fish body.
Yeah, so what's a chimera, Mere Kitty?
A chimera, well, a mythical chimera has a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail.
Mm-hmm, that's right. And what kind of chimera are you? I guess a cat and a mermaid, you told us already, right?
Yeah.
So it's any combination of animals or animals and people fused together?
Yes.
What about you, Prime? I see that you have a kind of a chimera mythical creature with you as well today.
Bound, 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 and bound.
What is that?
Oh, hi, I'm a jackalope. Jackalopes are a mythical creature mixed with a bunny or a jack.
A jackrabbit, uh-huh.
And mixed with an antelope.
That's right. So it ends up looking like a bunny with long ears and horns.
Mm-hmm. So bound, bound, bound.
I like your song, Mr. Jackalope. And Princess Pony, why don't you also tell us what
Star
people...
Pony.
Oh, Princess Star Pony?
Yeah.
I don't even... What did I call you?
Princess Pony.
Oh, Princess Pony, sorry. Princess Star Pony. Would you tell us about when people would find what they thought were dragon bones, when they would dig up bones that they would think were dragons? What were they probably?
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, or they would find what they thought were unicorn horns.
Which were actually narwhal horns. Teeth.
Narwhal teeth. Yeah, tell us about narwhals.
Narwhals are basically whales with one really long tooth that sticks up their forehead and out of their body.
Oh my goodness.
And they look like a unicorn whale.
Yeah, they look like a chimera, right?
But they're not.
So sometimes what has been a real creature has been mistaken for a monster, right? When people came back to England with stories of gorillas, people didn't believe they were real, right? Because, do you remember why?
Because they had never seen a gorilla before.
Yeah, and it just sounded too fantastic to have this huge animal that would pound on its chest and, right? It just sounded like a monster to them. Do you want to make the sound for us? It's kind of like Tarzan, huh? Okay, I think Prime 34, you wanted to talk to us about the Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, the Twilight Zone?
Oh yeah, Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. The Twilight Zone is one of the kind of funny episode, but it leads to kind of madness in the whole thing. So it starts out with a blackout. Well, it actually starts out with a shooting star, and that shooting star is an alien. So then, all of a sudden, everything on Maple Street just doesn't work. Phones, cars, everything just doesn't work.
Not even the radio.
Uh-huh. So, then this little kid said, well, not around 12 or 13, Tommy says that's how it starts. And then the people are like, what? That's how the alien invasion starts. So then they talk a little while about the alien invasion, and then a guy goes over to say, to go check out some power on another street. So, and then eventually everybody just sees one person's thing works. And everybody's all like, the aliens are among us, and they're them. So they all start pointing fingers at them, and then it doesn't, and does, and then everybody's pointing fingers at each other, and each other, and each other, and each other. Eventually they point the fingers at the one who technically told them about what was happening. So they start all like throwing rocks at a little kid. So then it just turns into madness. Eventually you figure out that aliens are among them, but not in that kind of way. They're just messing around with them, and then they keep on, and they're just showing us that how once something goes wrong or scares us, that
Everyone
we just want.
starts scapegoating.
They just want to point fingers at everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that synopsis, Prime 34. And Princess Star Pony, you brought up a really good vocabulary word that we should know about. And what's that called?
Scapegoat.
Tell us a little bit about what happens when someone makes a scapegoat of someone.
A scapegoat is... Wait, do I describe what a scapegoat is?
Sure.
So a scapegoat is when someone, like, doesn't know what's going on or is scared, so then they blame it on the person that might have, like, done it.
Yeah, and they don't even need to have evidence that the person did it. They would just point fingers at them for whatever reason that they find. For instance, they're different, they're other. They put them into a kind of a category that we put the monstrous into, right? Something that we don't understand. Yeah, and how does that happen in The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street?
Well, in that they're saying that everyone else but them did it, and then it turns into a madness and they start a riot.
Yeah, exactly. It turned out to be really scary. Remember, we'd also talked about in The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, the other becomes a scapegoat. We find reasons for blaming each other and thinking the other is evil, monstrous, or wrong. But then we release the truly monstrous, which is fear, right? And when I told you about this, we were talking about it. You had the quote from Yoda, I think. What was that quote again?
Fear. I can't remember exactly. I think it's like
Fear leads to anger.
Anger leads to hate, and hate leads to the dark side.
That's right. Hate leads to the dark side. So it starts with that fear, and then we going over to the dark side, becoming a Sith, right, is becoming a monster. So we become the monsters, and we talked about how this is similar to what's happening now, actually, in our country, with people scapegoating Asian Americans in the United States and who are being blamed and harassed by racist people for the COVID-19 virus. We can be upset that the Chinese government didn't act quicker or weren't more forthcoming about the prevalence of the violence without stereotyping, generalizing, and becoming racist. Otherwise, we become the monsters, right? We can be angry or upset or scared with our leaders. That's okay to have those emotions, but to turn them around at other people is us unleashing our fear into the dark side and acting out on it. And I think that's really something that The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street shows well, how we become the monsters. Anything else you wanted to say about that episode? Would you recommend it?
To anyone over the age of, like, 7.
Anyone over the age of 7? Well, you're 9.
I'm 9.
And Prime, you're 12. And I think that those are good ages probably to have watched the episode, but probably younger than that wouldn't probably be as appropriate, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we had talked about cryptozoology, the study of creatures that might or might not exist. And that goes back to what we've been talking about with the narwhal and with the gorillas, that those are armadillos, right? Those are all creatures that really exist versus unicorns and dragons and sphinxes, those kind of creatures and monsters, right? So these are, again, monsters that don't fit into our socially learned categories, and they make us feel uncomfortable. So then there are some creatures that people have thought were monsters, but they ended up what?
Being real.
Yeah, like what?
Like the axolotl, aka Mexican salamander.
Tell us about it.
Well, it can regenerate its limbs.
It can regenerate its limbs?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So creatures that seem like they could be mythical or monstrous, but they turned out to be real. There's also the blobfish. You want to tell us about the blobfish, Prime 34?
I was thinking about telling you about the blobfish. The blobfish is a fish which is practically a slime, just with eyes.
Yeah,
and
it's
other stuff.
so freaky, right? And it falls into what Freud called the uncanny. Oh, our little monster is barking right now. That's our Chihuahua barking her head off. She thinks that she's a great 3-headed dog. But Freud talked about the uncanny or discomfort that goes or discomfort to fear that can evoke both pleasure and fear. And so we look at something like the blobfish, and it looks like this just giant squishy head, right? Like somebody's just like their head turned into jelly and they're like floating around in the ocean. And that's really uncanny to us because of the pareidolia. Do you remember what pareidolia is? It's where we tend to see human faces, patterns in objects, like in the clouds. When we look up at the clouds and we see
like dragons and sheep.
Or we look at a water stain on the ceiling and we see
like faces and stuff.
Yeah, that's pareidolia. So that's partly also why we look at something and can think of it as a monster, like the blobfish, because it doesn't just look like a fish to us. It's in a category that we can't describe, that we're not used to, because it looks like a slimy head. Okay, I think it's very much time and overdue for the mystery sound.
Mystery sound.
Mystery sound. Okay, will you get that ready for us?
Yeah.
Some of the other creatures that you should definitely look up. So there's the blobfish. There's the ai, which is a lemur, and it's got 6 fingers, and one of them, the middle finger, is outrageously long. Reminds us of like the stereotypical witch's nail or something like that. And there's a star-nosed mole that is a creepy creature.
Oh, and there's also the deep sea goblin shark.
Yes. Oh, and they're all so scary.
And it's a rare species and is the only extended representative of the family. I can't pronounce it.
Okay. Okay. So let's hear the mystery sound. That probably sounded like our chihuahua, but we promise you it's not. Here, listen to it one more time. Okay, we're going to just go ahead and tell you what that mystery sound is.
Wait, let's first take calls.
Oh, sure. Okay, let's take some calls.
3 calls.
Ring, 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 ring.
Hello, I'm BB.
And what do you think the mystery sound is, BB?
I think the mystery sound might be by my best friend Midnight, the Chihuahua.
It sure does sound like a chihuahua.
Ring, ring, ring. Ring, ring, ring. I think you should answer this.
Hello?
Hi, I'm Penny. I'm super excited. I think it's also my best friend, Midnight, the Chihuahua.
Wow, that's 2 votes for Midnight the Chihuahua, but I promise you, dogs, it is not.
Ring, ring, ring.
Hello?
I'm Midnight Chihuahua, and I think it's myself.
Wow,
Okay,
Midnight, we're sorry to disappoint you, but it is not you. Princess Star
Ring,
Pony?
ring, 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 ring. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Who is it?
Hello?
Okay, this is getting old.
Okay,
Princess Star Pony, what is the sound?
it's an axolotl bark.
That's so crazy. So not only do they regenerate their limbs, but they also bark?
Yeah.
And they're sea creatures.
Yes.
Wow.
And they also have legs so they can walk on land.
This is the cutest little salamander you've ever seen. Please promise us that you're going to look up the axolotl and love it as much as we do.
It's spelled AXOLOTL.
So adorable. Talk about fuzzy, lovable monsters. This is our favorite, probably. And speaking of lovable monsters and beasts, don't you have something to talk to us about with some fantastical beasts, Prime 34?
Oh, yes. Some of the coolest beasts from the Fantastical Beasts and Where to Find Them. And
By J.K. Rowling?
By J.K. Rowling. My personal favorite is the Niffler. Has a long bill like a platypus and sort of likes like a body like a porcupine. Mm-hmm. It likes to steal stuff. The Niffler is the coolest thing. We will take it home if I could.
Would you use it as a pickpocket?
Yes.
That might be monstrous. So that's kind of a chimera as well, because it seems like a kind of a blending together of different animals that already exist. Very cool. Well, I'm going to think about what Newt Scamander says. You've gone middlehead. Going middlehead, apparently, according to Newt Scamander, who's never met a monster he couldn't love, is that the middle head of a three-headed creature. I don't remember the name of it. Do you?
Fluffy.
Fluffy, maybe. the three-headed dog.
It's probably not Fluffy the three-headed dog. That probably wasn't even born.
The middle head is the one that's more of a visionary and can see things astutely. And so if you've gone middle head, that means that you are a visionary and you see things clearly, according to Newt Scamander. Okay, well, we hope that our monster podcast hasn't scared you too much, but that it's opened your eyes up to some of the monsters that we love and helped you to re-see monsters in a way that you might not have before. That you can see that it's actually humans that can tend to be monstrous by making things monstrous, by calling them monstrous or being mean to them, right? And when we're kind and loving and compassionate to each other, hopefully we can keep the monsters from being created in ourselves and others. Anything else you would like to add to that?
No?
Did we cover it?
Think so?
Okay, what about you, Grover? Did we cover it? The end! I told you there was nothing to be afraid of. Thank you, Mercat, and thank you, Jackalope, for being here today. Do you want to say bye?
Yeah, bye.
Okay, that's it. Why don't we growl a goodbye?
Goodbye.
Bye.